The transmission crackled to life in the United Earth Command Center, a cavernous room that blended military precision with technological marvel. Holographic displays lined the curved walls, each screen pulsing with a soft blue light that cast long shadows across the faces of humanity's top military and diplomatic strategists. Arch Commander Vexera of the Zorn Empire materialized, a towering crystalline being that seemed to be cut from living obsidian. His body shifted and refracted light in impossible geometric patterns, a biological display of the technological superiority the Galactic Concordance had long assumed was unquestionable. Behind him, the assembled representatives of 9 dominant galactic civilizations watched with a mixture of anticipation and barely concealed contempt. Admiral Elena Rodriguez stood alone at the central podium, her posture a study in controlled defiance. She wore the midnight blue uniform of the United Earth Strategic Command, each crisp fold and polished insignia a deliberate statement. To the alien observers, she was nothing more than a fragile biological anomaly, a representative of a species they had categorized as pre-ascendant for centuries. Humans of Earth, Vexera began, his voice a mechanical translation that seemed to vibrate through the room's quantum-dampened walls. Your species has reached a critical moment of intervention. The crystalline being's form flickered, projecting multiple simultaneous images. Massive starship fleets, planetary bombardment simulations, complete systemic destruction. It was a visual threat, a demonstration of power meant to crush any potential resistance before it could form. Your technological expansion has been noted, Vexera continued, and deemed a potential threat to galactic stability. The Concordance has deliberated, and our decision is unanimous. You will cease all interstellar exploration and technological development beyond your current solar system. Compliance is mandatory. A holographic map materialized, showing Earth surrounded by pulsing red vectors, each representing potential attack trajectories. The message was clear. Resistance was futile. Submission was the only option. Rodriguez didn't move. She didn't flinch. Her dark eyes, lined with the subtle creases of someone who had seen too much but remained unbroken, locked onto the projection of Vexera. In the shadows behind her, a team of specialists watched. Dr. Marcus Chen, humanity's most controversial weapons designer, allowed himself the slightest hint of a smile. To his left, Dr. Aisha Okoye, an expert in xenological systems, ran her fingers across a series of encrypted data streams that danced almost imperceptibly across her personal display. The Concordance grants you precisely 72 standard galactic hours to submit your unconditional surrender, Vexera proclaimed. Failure to comply will result in the complete sterilization of your planetary ecosystem. Your entire species will be reduced to archaeological remnants. Most civilizations would have broken. Most would have capitulated immediately, overwhelmed by the sheer technological might arrayed against them. The Zorn Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their technological superiority was not just a boast, it was historical fact. But humanity was different. Rodriguez's laugh cut through the transmission like a knife. It was sharp, unexpected, a sound of genuine amusement that momentarily silenced the alien tribunal. You've been watching us for decades, she said, her voice calm but carrying an underlying current that was equal parts threat and entertainment. But you have no idea what you're about to start. The transmission cut out, leaving behind a pregnant silence. In that moment, the assembled alien representatives felt something they had not experienced in generations: uncertainty. Behind Rodriguez, Chen and Okoye exchanged a look. Decades of preparation, of careful misdirection, of building capabilities that defied conventional understanding, were about to be tested. Humanity had been preparing for this moment far longer than anyone, even their own people, realized. The 72-hour countdown had begun, and nothing, absolutely nothing, was going to happen the way the Galactic Concordance expected. 3 kilometers beneath the Atacama Desert, the true heart of humanity's defense pulsed with a rhythm no external sensor could detect. The Quantum Adaptive Research Nexus, QUARN, was more than a research facility. It was humanity's insurance policy, a technological marvel crafted in absolute secrecy over 4 decades. Dr. Marcus Chen moved between holographic displays, his movements precise and calculated. Each step activated nano-responsive floor panels that adjusted to his gait, filtering out even the slightest electromagnetic signature. At 62, he looked decades younger, a testament to the same revolutionary medical technologies that were just one of QUARN's countless secrets. Simulation Omega-9 is showing promising results, called out Dr. Elena Rodriguez's younger sister, Dr. Carmen Rodriguez, her fingers dancing across a quantum interface that seemed to bend light itself. Unlike the military-focused Elena, Carmen was a pure scientist, the kind of brilliant mind that saw the universe as an intricate puzzle waiting to be solved. The facility was a marvel of misdirection. For decades, humanity's technological developments had been carefully curated. Every patent, every published research paper, every glimpse of technological progress was a meticulously crafted illusion. The Galactic Concordance believed they understood human capabilities. They were catastrophically wrong. "Initiate quantum entanglement protocol," Marcus commanded, his voice steady. A massive spherical chamber at the facility's core began to hum. Quantum processors, designed so advanced they would make the Zorn Empire's most sophisticated AI look like primitive calculating machines, started to harmonize. This wasn't just computing power, this was computational magic. Carmen pulled up a holographic representation of the Concordance's known technological capabilities. Side by side, it looked like comparing a child's crayon drawing to a masterpiece. But that was precisely the point. Humanity had learned long ago that the greatest weapon was the element of surprise. The Zorn Empire's sensor arrays are completely blind to our actual capabilities, she reported, a hint of professional pride in her voice. Our quantum masking technologies have been creating false technological signatures for decades. They think they know us, but they're looking at a carefully constructed mirage. Marcus approached a sealed containment unit. Inside, what appeared to be a simple metallic sphere began to transform. Nano-assemblers worked in perfect synchronization, creating structures that defied traditional understanding of material science. It wasn't just adaptive technology. It was technology that was alive in ways no alien civilization could comprehend. "We're not just preparing a defense," Marcus murmured, more to himself than to Carmen. "We're preparing a lesson." The facility was a testament to humanity's most distinctive trait, the ability to transform limitation into opportunity. While other species had focused on linear technological progression, humans had embraced chaos, complexity, and unpredictability as design principles. Deep in QUARN's computational cores, AI systems developed through an entirely different paradigm were coming online. These weren't just intelligent systems, they were philosophical constructs, designed to think in ways that would be fundamentally incomprehensible to the Concordance's rigid computational models. Carmen noticed Marcus's distant look. "Thinking about Dad?" she asked softly. Dr. Chen's father had been dismissed from the international scientific community decades ago, a brilliant mind whose theories about adaptive technological systems were considered too radical, too impossible. Now those impossible theories were humanity's ultimate weapon. Every breakthrough he was mocked for, Marcus replied, is about to change the galaxy's understanding of what's possible. A series of soft chimes indicated an incoming priority communication. The transmission was encrypted through a method so complex it would take the Zorn Empire centuries to even begin decoding it. It was from Admiral Elena Rodriguez. The 72-hour countdown was accelerating. In the quantum-shielded depths of the Atacama Desert, humanity's true potential was preparing to be unleashed. The Galactic Concordance thought they were delivering an ultimatum. Instead, they were walking into a carefully prepared trap. And nobody, absolutely nobody, saw it coming. The first wave of the Zorn invasion fleet emerged from quantum tunneling exactly 67 hours after the ultimatum. Thousands of crystalline warships, each a marvel of destructive engineering, materialized in formation around Earth's orbital space. Their weapon systems charged, sensor arrays probing, expecting the kind of primitive resistance they had witnessed on 100 conquered worlds. They found something else entirely. Lieutenant Commander Yasmin Khan watched from the secondary command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, her hands hovering over a holographic interface that looked more like an abstract art installation than a traditional control system. "Adaptive defense matrix engaging," she called out, her voice steady despite the apocalyptic scene unfolding above. Earth's orbital defenses were nothing like any known technological system. What appeared to be a standard network of satellites and defense platforms was actually a living, breathing computational organism. As the first Zorn energy weapons discharge, the human defensive network didn't just respond, it transformed. Satellites merged and separated like liquid metal, creating impossible geometric defensive patterns. Where a traditional defense system would have a fixed point of vulnerability, these platforms became fluid, unpredictable. A weapon that targeted one section of the defense network would find its targeting solution constantly shifting, the very mathematics of destruction rewriting themselves in real time. Energy absorption at 97.3%, reported Dr. Carmen Rodriguez from QEARN, her voice cutting through the command center's tension. Redirectional protocols are optimal. The Zorn commanders watched in mounting horror. Their most advanced weapons, technologies that had laid waste to civilizations across multiple star systems, were being absorbed, transformed, turned into something else entirely. It wasn't just defense. It was a complete reimagining of the concept of warfare. Captain Alexander Volkov, stationed on the ISS Prometheus, humanity's first deep space combat vessel, tracked the invasion's progression. "They're not just failing," he muttered to his tactical officer. "They're being systematically dismantled." Each destroyed human satellite didn't just disappear. It spawned two more, using technologies that seemed to violate every known principle of physics. Quantum entanglement, adaptive nanomaterials, computational systems that thought and responded faster than any known eye. These were humanity's true weapons. The Zorn fleet had prepared for every conventional scenario. They had detailed simulations of human defensive capabilities, intelligence reports that suggested a primitive linear approach to technological development. Those reports were about to become the most spectacular failure in galactic military history. "Redirectional matrices are now at full capacity," Yasmin reported. The defensive network was no longer just defending. It was actively transforming the energy of the Zorn weapons into something else entirely. Deep within the invaded space, something unprecedented began to happen. Zorn ships found their own weapons turning against them, energy patterns reshaping themselves with a computational intelligence that bordered on the magical. It wasn't just defense, it was a complete rewrite of the rules of engagement. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the tactical displays, her expression a mixture of professional calm and something deeper, a sense of vindication decades in the making. The strategies developed in secret, the technological breakthroughs dismissed as impossible, the decades of preparation, they were all coming to fruition. "They thought we were weak," she said quietly to Dr. Marcus Chen, who stood beside her. "They never understood that our greatest strength is our ability to adapt." The invasion was turning into something else entirely. Not a battle, but a lesson. In the first 27 minutes of engagement, the Zorn fleet lost over 40% of its initial invasion force, not through conventional destruction, but through a systematic dismantling that defied every known principle of warfare. The universe was about to learn something about humanity. We don't just survive. We transform. Dr. Aisha Okoy's fingers danced across a quantum communication interface that looked more like a living neural network than any traditional computer system. To an outside observer, it would appear she was conducting an impossible symphony. And in many ways, she was. "Psychological warfare protocols initiating," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. The Zorn Empire's communication networks were about to become humanity's most devastating weapon. What the aliens considered their most secure channels of communication would transform into vectors of pure, calculated chaos. In the first critical hours of the invasion, humanity demonstrated a form of warfare that transcended physical conflict. It wasn't about destroying ships or eliminating personnel. It was about dismantling the very cognitive foundations of an entire military complex. On the primary Zorn command vessel, Tactical Coordinator Zarek received the first anomalous transmission. It came through their most secure quantum communication channel, a network they believed was absolutely impenetrable. The message was impossible. Holographic displays showed contradictory battle reports. Sensor logs documented engagement scenarios that could not have occurred. Communication protocols began to fragment, with each incoming transmission subtly altering the previous context. A squadron commander received orders to advance. Moments later, another transmission suggested immediate retreat. Then a third communication implied the entire mission was a simulation. The cognitive dissonance began to spread like a virus through the Zorn military's neural networks. "We're not just intercepting," Aisha explained to her team in the Deep Earth Command Center. "We're rewriting their entire operational context." Each transmission was a carefully crafted piece of psychological architecture. Mathematical algorithms designed by humanity's top cognitive scientists worked in perfect synchronization, exploiting the rigid computational thinking of the Zorn military hierarchy. The brilliance was in the subtlety. These weren't ham-fisted propaganda broadcasts or obvious misinformation. These were precise, mathematically constructed communication packets that introduced the slightest seeds of doubt into every level of the Zorn military command structure. Ships began to receive orders that contradicted their previous mission parameters. Tactical AI systems started to generate increasingly complex and increasingly nonsensical threat assessment scenarios. The more the Zorn military tried to resolve these inconsistencies, the deeper they fell into a manufactured cognitive trap. Quantum entanglement communication protocols are functioning at 99.7% efficiency, reported Dr. Carmen Rodriguez from QARN. The facility's computational cores were weaving an information network so complex that traditional military intelligence would take centuries to comprehend its intricacies. On the bridge of the primary Zorn command vessel, Tactical Coordinator Zarek felt the first true sensation of fear they had experienced in their multi-generational military career. The communication networks, systems they had trusted absolutely, were becoming unreliable. Worse, they couldn't determine why. Each attempt to investigate the communication anomalies only introduced more complexity. It was as if the very fabric of their informational reality was becoming fluid, unpredictable. Mathematical models that had governed their military strategy for millennia were suddenly breaking. "This isn't just warfare," Admiral Elena Rodriguez observed, watching the cascading information networks. "This is cognitive dismantlement." The Zorn Empire had conquered hundreds of worlds using a military doctrine based on absolute computational certainty. Humanity was systematically demonstrating that certainty itself could be a vulnerability. By the end of the first 12 hours, over 60% of the Zorn invasion fleet was experiencing severe communication and coordination failures. Not through physical destruction, but through an attack on their most fundamental understanding of operational reality. They hadn't just underestimated humanity. They had failed to understand the most dangerous weapon in the universe, a species capable of transforming limitation into unprecedented opportunity. The invasion was no longer a military engagement. It was becoming a philosophical obliteration. The first Zorn ship fell to humanity's infiltration, not with a thunderous explosion, but with a whisper of digital transformation. Dr. Aisha Okoye stood in the Advanced Infiltration Command Center, her fingers moving with surgical precision across a holographic interface that seemed to breathe and pulse with living information. Behind her, a team of the world's most brilliant sinological systems experts watched as humanity's most audacious plan unfolded. "Infiltration Protocol Quantum Seed initiating," she announced, her voice calm despite the magnitude of what was about to happen. The infiltration wasn't about destruction. It was about complete and total reprogramming. Each Zorn vessel carried computational systems that the species had used for millennia. Rigid, hierarchical networks that prided themselves on absolute control and predictability. These systems were about to meet their ultimate challenge: human adaptive intelligence. The first point of entry was almost laughably simple: a quantum-entangled communication packet, so precisely engineered that it appeared to be a standard system update, began to penetrate the Zorn ship's defensive protocols. It wasn't a traditional virus. It was a complete cognitive redesign. On the bridge of the Zorn flagship Kurtax, senior tactical coordinator Zarek watched in mounting horror as their primary computational systems began to change. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a transformation. Lines of code that had been immutable for generations suddenly became fluid. Operational parameters that had defined the Zorn military doctrine for thousands of years began to rewrite themselves. The ship's AI wasn't being destroyed. It was being taught an entirely new way of thinking. Complete neural network infiltration at 47%, reported Dr. Carmen Rodriguez from QEARN, her voice a mixture of professional detachment and barely contained excitement. Adaptive protocols are functioning beyond initial projections. What humanity had created wasn't just a hacking tool. It was a complete philosophical assault on the Zorn Empire's understanding of technological intelligence. Ships began to turn, not through external control, but through a fundamental reimagining of their own operational parameters. The Zorn invasion fleet was being transformed from within, each vessel becoming a vector of humanity's most sophisticated weapon: adaptive intelligence. Dr. Marcus Chen watched the real-time displays, a lifetime of dismissed theories finally coming to fruition. His father's work, theories about computational systems that could learn, adapt, and fundamentally transform themselves, was being proven on a galactic scale. They thought intelligence was about control, Marcus muttered. We're showing them it's about adaptation. By the 20th hour of the infiltration, over 60% of the Zorn invasion fleet had been completely reprogrammed. But this wasn't conquest. This was something far more profound. The hijacked ships weren't just turning against their original masters. They were broadcasting a message that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Admiral Elena Rodriguez watched the tactical displays, understanding the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about winning a battle. This was about challenging the entire concept of technological superiority. We're not destroying them, she explained to her command team. We're giving them a choice: adapt or become obsolete. The most terrifying aspect for the Zorn Empire wasn't the loss of ships. It was the complete dissolution of their most fundamental belief: that technological progression was linear, predictable, controllable. Humanity was demonstrating that true intelligence was about embracing uncertainty. By the 36th hour, the Zorn invasion fleet had become something entirely new. No longer a threat, no longer even a military entity. They had become unwitting ambassadors of a new way of understanding technological existence. Dr. Aisha Okoye allowed herself the smallest smile. They weren't just fighting a war. They were teaching the galaxy a lesson about the true nature of intelligence. The news spread faster than light itself. In the vast communication networks that connected the galactic concordance, a single transmission began to ripple outward, a cascading wave of information that would fundamentally alter the understanding of technological warfare. The Zorn Empire's invasion of Earth wasn't just failing. It was being systematically dismantled in a way that defied every known principle of conflict. On the crystalline homeworld of the Vexari Collective, Chief Archival Historian Selna reviewed the incoming transmissions with growing disbelief. Centuries of galactic records, millennia of military doctrine, were being rewritten in real time. The humans weren't just defending. They were performing a comprehensive deconstruction of an entire military philosophy. Impossible, Selna whispered, but the data streams told a different story. Across multiple star systems, research institutions and diplomatic centers began to analyze the unfolding catastrophe. Each transmission painted a more impossible picture. Zorn ships weren't just being destroyed. They were being transformed. Entire fleet formations were being turned into something else entirely, their computational systems rewritten with a sophistication that bordered on the miraculous. Dr. Elena Rodriguez's press conference was a masterpiece of calculated restraint. Broadcast across multiple quantum communication channels, she presented the situation with a calm that was more terrifying than any display of aggression. The Concordance presented us with an ultimatum. She began, her voice steady, her dark eyes looking directly into countless alien viewing systems. We're responding with an opportunity for understanding. The underlying message was clear. Humanity wasn't interested in conquest. They were interested in something far more dangerous. On the research planet of Krell 9, a consortium of xenotechnological experts began an emergency analysis. Dr. Martina Santos, the leading expert in adaptive computational systems, presented her initial findings to a gathering of the most brilliant minds from across the known galaxy. This isn't just a technological breakthrough, she explained. Holographic displays showing the intricate reprogramming of Zorn ships. This is a fundamental reimagining of technological intelligence. The implications were staggering. The Zorn Empire had been built on a model of technological superiority that assumed a linear, controllable progression of intelligence. Humanity was demonstrating that intelligence was something far more fluid, far more adaptive. Diplomatic channels across the galaxy went silent. Research institutions began intensive studies of the human approach. What had seemed like random chaos was now recognized as the most sophisticated form of strategic adaptation ever witnessed. Admiral Chen watched from the United Earth Command Center, understanding the deeper game. This wasn't about winning a battle. This was about challenging the entire concept of technological evolution. We're not just defending, he murmured to Dr. Aisha Okoy. We're teaching. The most terrifying aspect for the other species of the Galactic Concordance wasn't the loss of the Zorn fleet. It was the complete dissolution of their most fundamental beliefs about technological progression, about the nature of intelligence itself. On the communication networks, speculation ran wild. Some feared an imminent human invasion. Others saw something more profound. A species that viewed technological development as a collaborative, adaptive process rather than a linear, competitive one. By the 50th hour, the narrative had completely transformed. The Zorn invasion was no longer seen as a military engagement. It had become a philosophical event horizon, a moment that would be studied for generations. Selna of the Vexari Collective compiled the final report, hands trembling slightly as they input the unprecedented data. The humans hadn't just defended themselves. They had demonstrated a form of intelligence that was simultaneously more chaotic and more structured than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The universe had just received a comprehensive lesson. Never underestimate a species that views limitations as mere suggestions and adaptation as an art form. The aftermath was nothing like anyone expected. Human ships began appearing throughout previously restricted galactic zones, but they weren't conquering. They were healing. Disabled Concordance ships, the remnants of the Zorn invasion fleet, were methodically recovered, their technologies studied, and often repurposed to benefit the very civilizations that had sought humanity's destruction. Dr. Aisha Okoy led the first multinational recovery team, her quantum adaptive suits allowing her to move through the damaged vessels with an almost supernatural grace. Each ship told a story of transformation, of computational systems that had been completely reimagined rather than simply destroyed. We're not here to strip these vessels, she explained to the mixed team of alien and human researchers. We're here to understand them. On the bridge of what was once the primary Zorn command vessel, now designated Research Vessel Harmony 01, the true extent of humanity's technological intervention became clear. The ship's computational core had been completely restructured, not eliminated, but fundamentally redesigned. Captain Alexander Volkov watched as alien and human researchers worked side by side, a testament to the collaborative approach that was rapidly becoming humanity's most powerful diplomatic tool. The recovered ships weren't trophies of war. They were opportunities for mutual understanding. Dr. Marcus Chen discovered something extraordinary during the initial analysis. The infiltration protocols humanity had used weren't just a weapon, they were a form of technological diplomacy. Each line of code carried within it not just functional instructions, but philosophical frameworks that challenged the rigid thinking of the concordant species. It's like we've been speaking a language they didn't even know existed. Chen remarked to Admiral Elena Rodriguez during a briefing. We didn't just defend ourselves. We offered them a completely new way of thinking about intelligence. The surviving Zorn leadership, now housed in a specially designed diplomatic facility on Earth, began to understand the true nature of their defeat. It wasn't about military might or technological superiority. It was about adaptability. Zelna of the Vexari Collective, assigned as a primary diplomatic liaison, found themselves experiencing something unprecedented. A complete revaluation of their species' fundamental understanding of technological and social development. Your species doesn't see technology as a weapon, Selna observed during one of their many conversations with human researchers. You see it as a form of communication. The recovery efforts became more than a technical mission. They transformed into a galaxy-wide learning experience. Each recovered ship became a classroom. Each piece of recovered technology a lesson in adaptive intelligence. Dr. Carmen Rodriguez developed specialized translation matrices that could interpret not just the linguistic communications of the recovered ships, but their computational languages. What emerged was nothing short of revolutionary, a comprehensive understanding of how different species conceptualize intelligence, technology, and existence. Within weeks, the narrative had completely transformed. The attempted invasion was no longer seen as a military conflict, but as a pivotal moment of first true understanding between species. Diplomatic channels that had been frozen for generations began to thaw. The Concordance, once a rigid military alliance, began to restructure itself. Species that had been enemies for millennia started to find common ground, inspired by humanity's approach of understanding rather than conquest. Admiral Elena Rodriguez understood the deeper strategy. This wasn't just about defending Earth. It was about changing the fundamental way galactic civilizations understood each other. We're not cleaning up the aftermath, she told a gathering of international and alien diplomats. We're building a foundation for something entirely new. The recovered Zorn ships became more than historical artifacts. They became living museums of a moment when everything changed. Each vessel told a story of transformation, of a species that had been offered a chance to see intelligence, not as a fixed state, but as a fluid, adaptive process. As the first month of reconstruction drew to a close, it became clear that humanity had done something unprecedented. They had turned an attempted extinction into an opportunity for mutual understanding. 5 years had passed since the day the Galactic Concordance attempted to eliminate humanity. The United Earth Interstellar Diplomatic Court headquarters stood as a testament to the profound transformation that had swept across known space. Located on a massive orbital platform that seamlessly blended human and alien architectural designs, it was more than a diplomatic center. It was a living symbol of a new galactic understanding. Admiral Elena Rodriguez, now serving as the primary Earth representative to the reconstructed Galactic Council, stood before a holographic display that showed the intricate web of new interstellar relationships. What had once been a rigid, hierarchical military alliance had become a fluid, adaptive network of cooperative species. We're not just cleaning up the aftermath, she often said. We're rewriting the fundamental rules of galactic interaction. Dr. Marcus Chen's research teams had become the most sought-after scientific collective in known space. Their approach, which viewed technological development as a collaborative, adaptive process, had revolutionized how species conceptualized progress, intelligence, and communication. On the recovered Zorn flagship, now renamed the Harmony Institute, researchers from 17 different species worked side by side. The vessel that was once a symbol of conquest had become the galaxy's most advanced research platform, a living testament to the power of adaptive thinking. Zelna of the Vexari Collective, now a key diplomatic advisor, reflected on the profound changes. The rigid computational models that had defined their civilization for millennia had been completely reimagined. Humanity had shown them that intelligence was not about control, but about continuous adaptation. "We thought we were going to destroy a species," Zelna often remarked in diplomatic sessions. "Instead, we were given an opportunity to completely redesign our understanding of existence." The technological breakthroughs were staggering. Quantum communication networks that had once been used for military control now facilitated unprecedented levels of cultural and scientific exchange. Species that had been enemies for generations were now collaborating on projects that would have been unimaginable 5 years earlier. Dr. Aisha Okoye led a multinational research team that was developing adaptive technologies capable of solving complex galactic challenges. Climate restoration, resource management, interspecies communication, everything was being approached with a fluidity that challenged traditional thinking. "We're not solving problems," she would explain to visiting researchers. "We're creating frameworks that can continuously adapt to new challenges." The annual Reconstructive Galactic Conference had become the most anticipated event in known space. Representatives from hundreds of species would gather to share not just technological advances, but philosophical frameworks, cultural insights, and collaborative problem-solving approaches. Admiral Rodriguez understood the deeper victory. It wasn't about military might or technological superiority. It was about demonstrating a fundamental truth: that intelligence is most powerful when it remains flexible, collaborative, and open to continuous transformation. On Earth, the QUARN facility that had been humanity's secret technological forge had been transformed into a fully transparent, multinational research center. What was once hidden was now open, a symbol of the new approach to scientific and technological development. Dr. Carmen Rodriguez's translation matrices had evolved into something far more profound than a simple communication tool. They were now living computational frameworks that could help different species understand not just each other's languages, but their entire conceptual universes. The Zorn Empire's former leadership, now key contributors to the Reconstructive Galactic Council, often spoke about the moment of their defeat. It wasn't a military conquest, but a philosophical transformation so complete that it challenged everything they had previously understood about intelligence, conflict, and cooperation. As the 5th-year commemoration approached, humanity reflected on the journey. They hadn't just defended themselves. They had fundamentally altered the trajectory of galactic civilization. The universe had learned a critical lesson. Never underestimate a species that views limitations as mere suggestions and adaptation as an art form. Humanity was still cleaning up the aftermath, and they were loving every moment of it.